Hi, everyone. Welcome to a very special evening tonight with our partners at LA Skins Fest. Tonight's event is a collaboration between the USC School of Cinematic Arts, along with Our Voices, the School of Cinematic Arts' Diversity and Inclusion Council, and USC Visions and Voices, the Arts and Humanities Initiative at the School of Cinematic Arts. This is a very special panel discussion about the Native American TV writer experience with alumni from the LA Skins Fest TV Writers Lab. I'll welcome all of our guests in just a moment, but to start, I'd like to turn it over to my colleague, Stacey Patterson, who will offer us a land acknowledgement.
Good evening. Thank you, Alex. My name is Stacey Patterson, and my pronouns are she, her. I am the proud daughter of an enrolled member of the Ojibwe Nation of White Earth, Minnesota. And here in the School of Cinematic Arts, I serve as a program manager in our Division of Media Arts and Practice. It is my honor to join this evening's organizers and panelists for this event. And as I welcome you, I would like to ask that you join me to acknowledge the land on which we work, teach, study, create, and build community. For those of us here in the LA Basin, for all of us who have and will again step foot on the USC campuses, this is Tongva land. The question of whom to acknowledge, and especially for those of you who may be connecting with us from elsewhere or have friends and family from nations other than the Tongva, I encourage you to visit nativeland.ca, which affords the opportunity for you to discover the original people, if you are not one of them yourself, of your home. There are hundreds of federally recognized tribes and pueblos in the United States alone. So in this brief time I have with you tonight, I will share just a small bit about the people who took great care of this land that is now called Los Angeles. Beginning some 3,500 years ago, the Tongva moved into coastal Southern California, inhabiting what is now LA and beyond. They thrived near their 4 sacred mountains and 4 sacred rivers, including what was then the wild and free LA River. They developed extensive trade routes with outposts that would become places like downtown LA. When the Spanish began to settle in and colonize this area in the 1600s, conflict was inevitable, as was violence, disease, and ultimately forced relocation, a policy that the US government would take up as well, which profoundly altered the lives of indigenous people here and elsewhere. But this is not the end of the story. Honoring those who come before us is not only about our past or our history, and it certainly isn't about decline or demise. It's about hope. It's about resilience. It's about the transfer of knowledge that continues across generations of Native communities today. It is a call for us to expand our understanding of Indigenous people, to understand that Tongva, like many Native people everywhere, continue in the present. They strive for self-determination. They demand respect for tribal sovereignty and the honoring of long-standing treaties. Like any of us, modern Native people love stories and storytelling of all genres across all mediums. So as we acknowledge Tongva land, I ask that we, Native or not, through the stories we develop, the research we conduct, the courses we teach, that we imagine and create a present and a future that is perhaps a bit less colonized and a bit more indigenized. And I hope that you will attend Native programming like tonight's whenever and wherever it is afforded to you. And I thank you for your time and for being here. And please continue to take good care of yourselves and of each other.
Thank you so much, Stacey. I really appreciate those powerful words and your continued support of the programming that we've done with LA Skins Fest. And I'm now very excited to welcome back Kapena Baptista, who is an MFA candidate in our Peter Stark producing program. He's going to be your host for the night. I'll let him introduce our panelists and our partners at LA Skins Fest. So everyone should be in great hands tonight. If you have any questions, just put them in the Q&A box below. When the panel opens up, we may read some out loud. We may invite some people over. We'll kind of play it by ear. But without further ado, Kapena, the show is yours.
Sure. Hi, everyone. I just wanted to quickly start off by acknowledging that we've all been through a lot this past year, and that we may be coming to this event having lost loved ones or elders or important members of our community. I wanted to acknowledge that and offer a prayer to everyone here so that we can begin this event in a good way and look forward to better days to come. Kau I ka vena o kau I kalani, he veke veke I ka pōpili puka, he elele o ka puni puni hikina, kau ke ka he vana au I ka ala a papa, la'i ana I luna I ke kūkulu o ka lanila, o kau ia huli e alo nei I ka ulu e, ai wā au e. Ho mai lako ma lama lama, I ka honua nei I ka mauliola, ua au Hawaii I ke ulino nei, mai kapi ina o ka veluna a ka la. Ka hiko ia I ke mano mano, ka I ke kōli mai o ke kilu mai, o ka uno I ka o ka pūlama, a pa'a ka ipu o ki ke e. Thank you, everyone. Aloha mai, nā hoa pu'uhonua mama, tagote. My name is Kapena, and I'm an MFA candidate in the Peter Stark Producing Program here at the USC School of Cinematic Arts. It's my immense pleasure to welcome all of you here tonight, and we're all so excited to meet our esteemed panelists here in the USC Zoom room. I want to give a special thanks to Alex Ago and the team at LA Skins Fest for helping make this event possible. This is our 5th or 6th installment in our partnership with LA Skins Fest, and it's truly a one-of-a-kind program offered nowhere else. I've had many people, faculty, students, and colleagues alike say that it's a highlight of USC's program offering this year. So please enjoy and participate in the conversation. So a couple of business items. The final deadline for the 6th annual Native American TV Writers Lab, of which all of our panelists are alumni, is March 1st, 2021. The Native American TV Writers Lab is a virtual 5-week program that has 7 participants write a new television pilot, take meetings with creative executives, and participate in the annual Native Writers Pitch Fest. Go to nama.media for the application. That is nama.media for the application. Also, $2,000 grants are available for Native Americans working in the entertainment industry in all above the line and below the line production positions who have lost work due to the COVID-19 pandemic. This is made possible in partnership with Netflix. So PAs, makeup, hair, camera, editors, sound, actors, writers, and everyone and everything in between could qualify for this program. That application is also available at nama.media and ama.media. All right, so with all of our business items out of the way, let's get to meet our panelists. Oh my God, I'm so excited. So as I call your name, please take a moment to introduce yourself, where you're from, where you're at, and maybe a little bit about how you got into the industry and what your favorite TV show is. So where you're from, where you're at, how you got into the industry, what your favorite TV show is. So let's start off with Shelly Dennis.
Hi, everyone. Shelly Dennis. I am from Clayton, Oklahoma, which is a very, very tiny town near the Choctaw Nation headquarters. And I live in Los Angeles, but I'm visiting family. I've been here for like 2 months, so it's been a little retreat here because of the times that we're in. But so yeah, I'm here in Oklahoma right now. Let's see, what was the favorite? I'm revisiting a show that I hadn't seen in a while, but wanted to visit for research, and it's called Men of a Certain Age with Ray Romano and showrunner Mike Royce. And I'm like, I have love goggles on for the show at the moment. But you know, like in 2 weeks, I'll probably like be fixated on another show because I just get excited. So that's where I'm at now. And there another, did I miss something, Kapena?
Just maybe just a quick little bit about how you came into the industry.
I took kind of the long route, but I was writing along the way. I started off being obsessed with basketball, and then I was very tall and won this modeling contest. So I went from a town of like 700 people and then moved to Milan, Italy, where my mind was like actually blown. And it was kind of sink or swim. So I learned how to survive in like a big place like that. And then got really hungry, and I moved to LA to to pursue acting and like kind of find myself. So I had a dozen odd, weird jobs, and I had always written, and then I got into stand up, and that's when I sort of found my voice and started to hone that. So since then, I've written in several different facets, but I really focused on TV writing after getting into the LA Skins TV writing program, and I owe my career to them. They've been extremely supportive, and it helped me focus on my niche. So right now I'm in the Disney Writers Program for general entertainment, and was had the pleasure of working with Karissa on her show, which you'll hear about more,
Yes, of course.
over at Netflix, called Spirit Rangers. So that's me.
Exciting. Thank you so much. Great to have you here.
Thanks for having me.
Tom?
Hello, my name is Tom Hanada. I'm Cherokee Nation of Oklahoma, but I'm born and raised in Portland, Oregon. Right now, I live in Northridge area. My wife is a professor up at Cal State Northridge.
Wow.
So, yep, we're up in the burbs and kind of love it. I'm not gonna lie, except for in the summer, and summer lasts from about May to November.
Right.
But as for my career, so when I came down to LA, I got the first job I could, which was as a PA in post-production with Rob Reiner's crew. And so at the time, it was like, well, Rob Reiner, Harry Met Sally, Princess Bride, like, I'm a rom-com writer. So that's what I did for the first many years of my career, was to try to be a rom-com writer. And I really struggled with it. And I just I was like drifting toward all this darker stuff and making my rom-coms really dark too. And so eventually I made this transition into horror and thriller. And that just fits me so much better. It's like so much easier to write. There was a part when I was a rom-com writer, I was like, writing's supposed to be hard. You're supposed to struggle. It's like, oh, no, it's sometimes best to do the genre that your mind naturally navigates toward. So I'm a horror thriller writer, primarily at this point with novels and features. But I was in the 2016 Skinfest TV Writers Lab with Will. And I've done the 2 native writers' rooms that Skinsfest has put on. And my favorite show, it's going to be cliche, but I got to say Breaking Bad. Like,
it's still a great show. It's
hits the marks so well. It's the one, like, it's one of those shows that I'm just jealous of. It's one, I can't, it's that epitome that you're always trying to achieve. So that's
love that. Thank you, Tom. Great to have you here. All right, William, how are you?
I'm doing great. So happy to be here. My name's William Jehu Garroutte. Like Tom, I'm a citizen of Cherokee Nation of Oklahoma. I was an Army brat, so I grew up all over. Los Angeles was the longest place that I've lived anywhere, but I have temporarily decamped to Colorado.
Wow.
Half closer to family, half it's technically research for a show I'm developing, and so I can write it all off. But I came into writing in a failed attempt to impress a girl. She was not impressed, nor should she have been. But I discovered that I liked writing, and so I stuck with it. And I was able to do it for a living because of fellowship programs. LA Skins Fest was my first opportunity to meet people who wanted to do this also. And so I found a community as well as learning a lot of skills that I needed to know. I didn't go to college, and so fellowship programs were a kind of necessary way for me to network and make the sort of relationships that make a career possible. So I did the LA Skins Fest Fellowship, I did NBC's Writers on the Verge, and I did the ABC TV writing program that Shelley is now in. I've written on shows for Lionsgate and Showtime, for Sony International. I'm most recently coming off of Stumptown on ABC. I now have 2 shows in development at ABC, which is very exciting, and a 3rd show set up at UCP. So keeping busy.
That's so exciting. Congratulations.
Thank you.
All right. And Karissa, how are you?
Hi, everyone. My name is Karissa. So I'm currently based in Studio City in Los Angeles, but I grew up still Southern California. I grew up between San Diego and the Chumash Reservation and the Santa Ynez Valley.
Wow.
Yeah, so not that far. I'm a SoCal person.
Yeah.
I am a huge animation nerd. I always wanted to write kids' TV. No one knew what to do with me in film school because I wanted to write cartoons. I was really lucky and got my start as an intern at Nickelodeon. And from there, I worked up to being a production assistant on Dora and Friends, Into the City. I just have always loved like writing and cartoons, and I just didn't think it would connect the dots to preschool specifically until I went to Disney Junior and met Chris Nee and her team there, worked on Doc McStuffins, Vampirina, and just fell in love with this genre. Like, I love writing for little kids. They're so cute and so smart. It's so fun. So yeah, and that's when during this time, I created Spirit Rangers, which is an upcoming Netflix series. Won't come out for a couple of years. I am not an alum of the program, but I am a huge supporter because when this show got greenlit, I went to Ian and Patty and was like, who do you know? So I'm coming at it from a hiring perspective, and anybody they handed me, including Shelley, I know their writers are going to be polished, experienced, and ready to go. So I just am like thrilled with their work.
Yeah. Wow. So, I mean, for anyone who's out there in the audience that needs some native writers, I think you know where to look. All right. Thank you. Thank you. Great to meet all of you. This is going to be so exciting. Just for a little context, I'll ask some questions to each of the panelists kind of individually, and then ask more broad questions for all of you to answer and jump in, and then we'll open it up to audience Q&A. Feel free to use the Q&A at any point. Please keep the questions coming. We'll answer as many of them as we can. So we'll start with Tom. Tom, hello again.
Hello.
Right. So you mentioned that you're a novelist. I honestly think that's the coolest thing because not everyone is out here writing novels. Not a lot of people can write a novel. I mean, my God, I wrote a thesis in my undergraduate. It was about 100 pages and I was ready to just be done and over with it. Right. So can't imagine writing anything longer than that. And what's really cool is that I think a lot of folks are only now becoming familiar with kind of like this long legacy of Native Americans in literature, right? I mean, there are quite a few like authors out there that don't necessarily get a lot of notoriety. So could you tell us a little bit more about how you came into specifically writing novels, and maybe share a little bit about what your core writing philosophy is and who your biggest influences are?
So I started writing novels kind of as an escape hatch from Hollywood, to be honest. I'd had like several projects that were moving forward, felt like they were, okay, this is the breakthrough. And they all kind of fell apart at the same time. And it was like one of those just sort of moments where I'm just kind of like, oh, wow, this could keep happening. And it was like, ooh, I've built up this skill set that isn't very transferable to any other careers. And so I was just like, I need to get something out to an audience. Because yeah, like I had so many projects that was like, were loved by maybe 10 people and their assistants. And so I started carving out the time. And mostly it was converting scripts that people said, we love it. We love your writing. We love the story. There's nothing quite like it out there, so we can't do anything with it. We don't know if there's an audience. And so I started off just converting those into novels, which, you know, I had a very detailed outline then from the screenplay. And I did it truly to, you know, find an audience, find a source of income, like to make something from my writing so that I could do it as a living. And I'm in a position now where I can. And because once I turned my back on Hollywood, they were like it was like they were spurned or something, and they like kept coming back now and like offering me other stuff. And so in a weird way, it's kind of obnoxious and to have sort of way. So that's really the story. Like I know, and so all of my books are now like optioned because that's Hollywood.
Right.
You had the spec and now you need an IP behind it.
Right.
I don't recommend anyone like trying to write novels as a backdoor kind of IP way to sell a script. I think it only worked for me because I found like a lot of personal satisfaction in it. I wanted to, like, once I started doing it, I realized I wanted to do this, like that I genuinely enjoyed the format. It's very different from scripts. And very freeing in times, like because I do bounce back and forth now, and I feel what I noticed after bouncing back and forth is how much that pressure of the page count on a screenplay is like constantly like harping in your ear. It's like, oh, this scene is dragging on like too long, and I got to hit like the 60 page in a pilot or 100 page in a feature. Like and you know, in Hollywood, there is this sense that you're wrestling with the reader's attention. And in a novel, it's like, oh, the reader wants to be lost in your work. They want you to just transport them. So it's been great. It's been great bouncing back and forth. One thing I love is it's freed me psychologically to work in Hollywood now, because like, it's like, oh, okay, I have these projects where I'm, you know, writer, producer, director.
Right.
My vision's out on the page. People like it, they like it. If they don't, they don't. But it's there. And now it opens me up when like a producer comes up, you know, if I have a script and a producer has a note for it, I'm like, I can see your point. I don't have to be precious anymore. It's made me far more collaborative because, you know, it's not, I have my visions out there in other works. So yeah, that's sort of the long and short of the novel writing career.
Sure. Who are some of your biggest influences?
I mean, so for my genre, obviously Stephen King. There are a lot of like small, more indie horror novelists who just do fun work, like Jeff Strand, Michael Brent Collins. Like Flannery O'Connor is a probably traditional reference for me to drop right now, but like a lot of and she's very different, her style, but like a lot of her themes, a lot of just her quotes on writing, I kind of like took to heart. And so, yeah, I'd say those are the big ones.
That's great. So, and really quick, favorite horror movie?
It's always so tough.
do it.
Genre that I'm harshest on. I mean, if I'm going back, I gotta go like with sort of the first level of horror, which is the John Carpenter The Thing.
Oh, that's great.
Like that.
I like you.
It's just perfect. Just absolutely perfect.
That's great. All right, cool. So as you mentioned, your novel, Intercepts, was named one of the best horror novels of all time by Cosmo. Like, that's absolutely incredible. Congratulations for that. And I also heard that it's being adapted into a feature, right? So could you tell us how that deal came about and what the process has been for adapting a novel into a feature screenplay?
So that was one of those where the script was there, like done and at the company. And then the novel came out. They got on like several lists of like, oh, this is a decent book. And so that was that little bit of propellant that the script needed to kind of like move up the ranks of the company. And from there, we just sort of developed it a little more to sort of meet their needs. And at that point, you know, as I was saying before, I was much more open to like, oh yeah, we can change that.
Right.
I'm not precious anymore. Like, oh, maybe this, you know, element wasn't working. And I see that now because I spent 80,000 words novelizing it. And I just have a better view of everything. So yeah, the process, that was mostly the process. It's kind of like a backwards process, like so many things,
right,
where like the script existed, the novel then existed, and the novel then pushed the script to better existence.
Right. Yeah, that's so interesting. I mean, I'm sure that kind of like more drawn out, deeper version in the novel has kind of made a different relationship, I'd imagine, with the screenplay. I mean, were there any kind of edits to the screenplay after the novel happened? I mean,
oh, it was so much easier to edit the screenplay after the novel happened, because it was like, oh, I have all of this other material to pull from, and all these backstories, and like more depth to the characters, and all of this other stuff that you just don't have the space for in the screenplay. But like once it's there and it's all in a cohesive form, then you can pull from, and like just the subtext just sort of like kind of drips through the pages at that point.
I love that. That just seems so cool. I mean, what a great way to write. You know, I mean, it requires just so much writing, but I mean, I'm sure the final product is just absolutely incredible. I'd love to read it, actually. So
again, it's like I don't necessarily recommend this strategy for a story, but it works if you want to put the time into it.
Sure. All right. So I also heard that you've done some writing on assignment for Will Smith. Is that correct?
Yes.
Well, that's pretty cool. Could you tell us how you came about doing that?
I can't tell you too much about that project yet, but that one, that was just, I was brought in to pitch on assignment. And so it was just, you know, a bunch of writers, and and they liked my take. And that was a case where they liked my take, and they liked another writer's take, and they were like, hey, do you two want to work together?
Wow.
And so we met for coffee, and we're like, okay, you seem like a cool guy. And so we teamed up and, you know, wrote the script together.
Wow. That's so do you have any tips for, I guess, like how to best write for an assignment as opposed to just like writing for yourself, or kind of out in the ether?
It's a weird thing in Hollywood, in that, you know, you're getting hired because they want your voice, and they want your unique voice and your unique perspective on the world. And they want to take that and they want to put it in a marketable box. And so much in Hollywood is this like weird irony and this kind of psychological thing going on, where in your own mind, where it's like, okay, how do I take, you know, what makes me unique, the things that, about like how I see the world that I might consider weird or strange, and like, you know, fit this to someone else's vision. And it is like, it's a very, you know, it is like being in a writer's room. It is very collaborative. And in this case, you know, the producer and the exec of the company, like they were the showrunner. They had that final say. And you present them ideas, you make your case. Sometimes you win, sometimes you lose. Even the ones you like very much disagree with, if you lose that fight, then you flush it and you make it work. Like your opinion, you know, you find a way to make it work and make it the best you can. And I mean, that's just how you kind of approach all writing, even the stuff you write yourself. I feel like just on spec, it's about like, you know, okay, I kind of know I want to do it this way, but my readers, my audience would probably prefer I do it this way. How do I marry those two so that everyone can like have the best experience? And, you know, I think so much of writing is this mental game. And I think that's where, you know, I see people struggle, and I know I've struggled with that myself, is that like that pull inside your own mind of like, you know, keeping your voice while also like fitting it for what other people are expecting. And I think that's the biggest challenge. Once you get over that hurdle, then you're on the rails. It's great.
That's great. And this is a question I'll be asking every single one of you, but Tom, how do you motivate yourself just to keep writing? I think the bane of every writer is the writer's block, right? Or you just get so tired of looking at the words on the page. It's just like, I'm done with it. How do you keep going? How do you manage to motivate yourself that way?
When there's a deadline, it's easy. It's much easier. And you know, there was the low point where I was like about to quit Hollywood. And I needed to reinvent myself a bit. And because, you know, when you're I think a lot of writers hit that point where it's like, oh, writing sucks, the business sucks, like, and they can be very negative, and you get like in that. And once I started doing novels and like sort of telling the stories the way I wanted to be told, I found the joy in writing again. And then it's like really easier, because the days where I procrastinate, and just like, you know, bounce around on the internet and don't get writing done. I go
Mm.
to bed and I feel bad about myself, and it's like, oh, I don't like this feeling.
I know that.
I'm actually like getting the word count and the page count done. And another thing about the novels is like, it's brute force writing. Like, you know, there's a lot more words you need to get done in a day. And if you're going to meet any kind of deadline, if you're going to finish your book in time.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's just, you know, it's just churning it out, relentless forward motion, and get the words down and just find the joy in it. Like if you don't, I've heard like you should only write if you're making money or you're finding joy in it. And when I wasn't making money and I wasn't finding joy in it, then it was really hard to write.
Right.
Once I found the joy, then the money kind of followed to certain varying degrees, depending on the month. But yeah.
Great. It's great. Tom, thank you. Thank you so much. I really loved everything you had to say. Awesome. All right. So next, from the farm to the catwalk to your screen, it's Shelly Dennis. Hi, how are you, Shelly?
Oh, I thought it was going to be me. This is so awkward.
We always people get us mixed up all the time. It's so annoying.
Oh, wow. How are you doing? How are you this evening?
I'm great. Yeah, I think if the Oklahoma City Thunder is playing right now, so if we're winning, I'm good. I'll have to check this out.
We'll check that soon. Cool. So you mentioned earlier that you got your start out in modeling. Like, what an experience that must have been. Could you talk about that a little bit and maybe how that influenced your writing in any way?
It doesn't sound related, but it is extremely related. Because I mentioned this town is so small, and I'd never been anywhere before. And when we had our family vacations, it wasn't like we'd go to France. It's like we went to, you know, Wet and Wild in Oklahoma City or something like that. So there just wasn't a lot of culture. So when I got the opportunity to go to Italy, I was just so excited, and it was kind of my meal ticket. That's a bad joke, but it was my meal ticket to not eat, to get out of my hometown. So I took it, and I was so just there was so much information, because even when I went to college before I went to Milan, and even just going up 3 hours north to a university was a culture shock for me. In so many ways, like even driving, I didn't know how to drive with like all these different lanes of traffic. There's every little thing. So
Wow.
I was really green. And that experience, you know, there's the Italian culture, and then there's the fashion culture. So everything was so different, but I didn't speak Italian when I got there. And I became like I felt very much like an alien, just trying to observe everyone and see how to fit in very quickly. And then there was also this extreme amount of wealth, and we are currently in the poorest county in Oklahoma. So I didn't know anyone with money. And then I remember, you know, going to like a nice restaurant and just being like, oh my God, I don't know how to eat sushi or lobster, or any of these things. So I had to
Wow.
fake it really fast. So I got really good at reading people and understanding what people were saying when I couldn't understand what they were saying. So body language, that kind of thing. So I just became fascinated with people and characters. And again, growing up on a farm, I compared them to animals a lot, which is just
I love that.
I realize that's very weird, but yeah, so when I was always writing when I was in it, because I didn't have any friends, because I didn't speak their language, and everyone was moving around. So by the time I got to LA, I needed to express myself in some way, and stand up was that for me. So it was more of a, like Tom was saying, which I totally resonate with, you have to find something within that creative pursuit that feeds you, or you'll either not survive, or a piece of you will die. And I know that's very dramatic, but you have to feed that part of yourself. So that's what stand up did for me. And it eventually translated into my writing.
Wow, what an incredible story. My God, that's so interesting. I mean, I'm really curious. Like, so what was it like? It's just kind of culturally as a Native woman in Europe, right? Like, right? I mean, did you have to, were you finding yourself like, explaining yourself to people often, or how did that work out?
Well, it's interesting because I like, you know, describing where I come from. I think the thing that was most unique was the redneck part, because I am,
Mm,
when, you know, you're in entertainment as a performer, whether you're modeling or acting, and I did sketch and all these things, you become
mhm,
very aware of how you're perceived.
mhm,
And stand up especially, because of what kind of jokes you can tell, and you know what you can and can't get away with. So knowing that I'm Native, but then knowing that people aren't going to perceive me as being Native, I'm very white passing for the most
mhm,
part. So people aren't, that was always kind of a fun thing that I could bring out, but I never had people asking me about it. It was something that I would bring to the conversation or offer up, but people weren't like, you know, what are you? People just assumed that
mhm.
well, Russian when I was in Europe. But yeah, people, you know, I learned how I was perceived because, you know, in Oklahoma, like I feel like everybody's Native, or that was at least they were in my head. I thought we were all Native.
I love that. So I see here that you co-created and starred in an 8-episode VR comedy called Sestra Sestra with Amaze VR. First of all, I think that's so cool. I think people who work in like VR or any emerging technology space is just like the coolest thing. But I think like to have like Native people in that especially, I think it's just like also necessary, right? So could you tell us a little bit more about this VR project and what your experiences was like? Is just kind of working in this kind of an emerging space of entertainment?
It was they couldn't have chosen someone who knew less about VR at the time. I mean, I'm not at the, you know, on the brink of technology in anything. And you know, when I actually was I knew someone who worked at the studio and they were looking for content. So it was kind of this fun experience where I was like, oh, well, they have money and they're making things, and they like this idea, so let me just see if I can adapt. And you know, anytime you do a different form of storytelling, you learn something,
Mhm.
even if it's that you don't want to do that form of storytelling, but you can test that. You can take that with you other places. But I really learned a lot about comedy because
Mm,
um you know, I also, oh no, I didn't direct that one. Before that, I directed a VR project for the same company. And the thing that I learned very quickly was that all of the comedic devices that I had used, like smash cut to and
mhm.
reveals and zoom ins and things like
Yeah.
that I would see in my head, couldn't be done in the form that we were using.
Oh,
It was a
interesting.
180. So it was back to theater in a weird way. So it was like
Ah,
this up and coming thing, but then I'm using like my theater training when directing and writing for that space. So it was great because I had to pull out, I couldn't use my bag of tricks. I had to like go back to some other ways to tell a story, especially with the comedy stuff. So it
mm.
was a great experience. I would definitely do it again, but it's not, you know, the main form of storytelling that I, you know, that's not my space. But man, it was cool to get the opportunity to play in there.
Yeah, I mean, like I feel like I don't know a lot of people who are even in that space now, right? So it's just like that's so cool you had the opportunity to do that.
Yeah, I think like 5 people and my mom saw it. So I was very proud of that work, but I was like, yeah, nobody's seen it because nobody, yeah.
I'd
So
love to see it. I'd
we're a
love to
hit
see
with those 5 people though.
it. All right, so here's the kicker. You're a Disney General Entertainment Writing Program Fellow for 2021. That is incredible. I feel like I have to give you an applause because that's
Thank
just
you.
congratulations, really. Like that's really just so cool. So could you tell us a little bit about what your fellowship experience has been like so far? And if you have any tips for anyone in the audience that's considering applying?
Ooh, yeah. I recommend applying as if it's your job every year to apply.
Mm,
I probably submitted 4 applications before I even got any any email. Like I never got past that first level where they're even like having a phone call with people. So, and I just sort of did it because it was this thing I did, and I didn't think any more about it because I was so used to it was really weird. I was so used to hearing no that when they were like, "Oh yeah, we're gonna move you to the next level," I was like, "Oh, I like we should be expecting that," but I just wasn't. So the diligence, I think that they recognize my name after a few years and we're like, let's bring her in. But I definitely recommend, even if you don't feel like, just submit your best work every year and keep doing it, and don't not do it because you think that they're not paying attention, because they might be. And it's a very interesting process, especially during the Zoom times we're living in right now.
Right.
But it's been so amazing to have something to focus on aside from what's happening in the world. Sometimes it's cool to get a break and be the cool thing is that there are the diversity of backgrounds of everybody in the program.
Wow.
Is really, it's been very educational because everyone we're have developed scripts, but they're very but they are very personal to our own experiences, and it's designed that way. So through the process of writing them, everyone is learning about each other's, like very intimately. So I've met these strangers, and suddenly I know very personal things about them, and vice versa. So it's been a really cool bonding experience, even in a time of separation. So I'm loving it, and I've only been in it for 2 months, but it seems like I've known everyone for, oh my gosh, no, I've only been in there a month, and it seems like I've been in it for a very long time. Because
Oh, I love to hear that.
yeah, it's cool. So I'm grateful.
Wow. Oh my goodness. Well, congratulations. I mean, there's so much ahead of you now. It's like wow. Yeah, can't wait to hear more about you in the future.
Thank you.
All right. So from the other farm to the catwalk, we have William. Hi, how are you?
Doing very well. I'm so happy to be on Zoom where people can't tell I'm 5'7". It's astounding. Like, I could be anything. I could be a model. You don't know.
Oh, that's so great. All right, so I know everyone in the business has a unique story about how they got to where they are, and I see here that you and I'm quoting, worked a long string of unconventional and unglamorous jobs before writing for shows on Lionsgate and Showtime and Sony and Stumpdown. So could you tell us a little bit more about your trajectory and how it landed you exactly where you are?
Yeah, I didn't go to college because I didn't want to. That was it. There are maybe more complicated reasons, but I didn't feel like it. I had enough school, and so I worked the sort of jobs that you work when you decide you've had enough school, and so I worked as everything from a historical village tour guide to a long string of bartending and waiting jobs. I was a graveyard shift valet for 5 years. Very exciting.
Wow.
I fixed computers at an independent repair shop in a strip mall, which was actually an amazing job. And I spent most of my 20s saying that I was writing, but actually not writing. And then I eventually got to a point of realizing that if I wanted to write, I should maybe write. And I used my copious downtime as a graveyard shift valet to start taking it seriously and treating it like a job, and writing a few hours every night, reading. I was in Los Angeles at the time, and there's the Writers Guild Library in LA is, when it opens again, completely free and has scripts for pretty much any show that's ever been on air.
Wow.
And you can just read scripts for produced episodes of television. And so I taught myself to write by going to the WGA library whenever I had a weekday off from whatever undignified job I had at the time. And I would read a bunch of scripts for a show that I liked And I would read the scripts, and then when I was back at my job, I would watch the episodes for the scripts I had read, and I'd see how it translated, see how they made it work. And then I'd go back and I'd read those scripts again now that I had it fresh. And so like I went through this process of mechanically breaking down scripts, figuring out what made them work. How did they make me feel what they made me feel? Where was the page where I cried, and how did they make me do it? And so I broke it all down. Eventually I figured out how to put scripts back together. But one of my favorite parts about my sort of non-conventional day job path is almost every show has a dirt bag, and almost nobody who works in TV is a dirt bag. And I remember what original flavor Four Loko tasted like. And this is actually a useful skill set. So I get to, like, I have lived some of the rougher parts of life that a lot of TV portrays. And so that has been incredibly useful. But it also taught me that, like, there comes a time when you just have to do your job. And that's really useful in TV, where deadlines are really intense and you can't wait on the muse to strike. And it's like, well, we are going to shoot something on Friday. You need to have your script ready, do your job. And I am able to be like, oh, it's my job to write now. Great, I will do my job. And that was very useful for me to have that sink or swim work ethic sort of imposed upon me. But
wow, can I just say, like, how inspired I am right now by you? Like, that's like, what an incredible, like, working a graveyard shift and like writing while you're doing it. Like, that's some dedication right there, man. Like, wow. I mean, I wish I had that. Like, that's real grit. Like, geez, like how do I get to that? You know, like that's exactly what I need. I mean, also, like, equally incredible, like you went to the WGA library, right? I mean, I'd been to the building for like a table read of sorts, but I didn't get to go to the library. In fact, I didn't even know that they had a library. That's super cool that you were just like going there and like taking all that you can to become a better writer.
It's totally free. It's like not for WGA members only. It's not like there are no limitations on it. It is a wealth of free and reproducible knowledge. It's incredible. I cannot speak highly of it enough.
So it just really quickly. So what are the 3 biggest lessons you've learned from screenwriting, or about screenwriting, learning from the WGA library?
Number 1, if you are going to go longer than 3 pages with a scene, you better have a good fucking reason, is the biggest one. Number 2, if you're 25 or under, don't read The Wire and try to replicate it. You will not be able to, and it will make you insufferable for a while. Number 3, examine why you like the things you like. Like, if there is a show that really speaks to you, figure out why it is on both an emotional level and a mechanical level, because whatever the artistry is, there is also craft that has buttressed it and brought it to your attention. And figure out the subtle ways that a show has spoken to you, and not just like, I like what this show says. Because a bad show can say good things, and a good show can say bad things. Right. And so really dig deep into what you like about a show and why, as you're studying, as you're trying to decide the sort of things you want to write.
William, that's incredible speaking to you. Like, wow. I'm really feeling it. All right, so yeah, trying to make a best use of time here. So finally, she's a California native, literally. It's Karissa Valencia. Hi, how are you?
Hello, I'm doing good. How are you?
Yeah, we're here. We're here. So I'll be honest and say I'm kind of fangirling right now because you've been all over the news for your new show on Netflix, Spirit Rangers. So I have to give you my sincerest congratulations for that. What an incredible achievement for you to do that. I think it's just so necessary just to have a show like that on TV. So Before we get into a deeper conversation about Spirit Rangers, could you tell us a little bit how you came into animation and what about it you love so much?
Yeah, and just thank you for the compliment. It just means a lot coming from our own community, so I just really appreciate it. So for animation, so a couple of things. Some of my favorite movies were like, of course, like the 90s Disney movies like Beauty and the Beast, the music, the humor, but I also really loved movies like Spirited Away. Those world building shows and the magic and the trippiness, and that you can do literally anything in animation. Like that stuff really like calls to me. And then also just like on a deeper level, as a woman, person of color, I never really saw myself, but in animation, we often follow the stories of like the other character. And I just like could always connect with those types of characters. And I think that all just kind of comes together in animation. And I just think I love this type of storytelling. Like it appeals to kids, to teens, to adults. Like it is such a craft that I love learning. So I'm just such a fan. And I wish I could draw at the end of the day. My God. As soon as I learned you could do animation without drawing, I was like, I am in.
You can do animation without drawing?
Yes, you don't have to draw. You can just write scripts. Yeah.
Oh, this is so great. So Spirit Rangers, here I am, like a grown-ass man getting all kinds of excited about a kid's show. Like it's just like, it's amazing. So it's like the first show of its kind, right? And I have to ask, like, what was that development process like? Like, where did the idea come from? And how did you like push it all the way to Netflix for them to say, we'll buy it?
Yeah, so Spirit Rangers is a combination of so many things. I feel like the heart of it is I just wanted to see myself as a modern Native kid in animation, like celebrating our culture, but also using technology, wearing boots, like, wearing everyday clothes, like, but also like, the Spirit Rangers they live in this magical national park where like spirits from their own tribe and other tribes come and visit. So it's like this intertribal community at the same time. That like duality of having a foot in both worlds is modern and tradition. Like that's kind of where like my love of that came from. And
incredible.
The idea kind of all clicked when I was at a bear ceremony back on the res for the shoe mash, and watching those dancers like move like the bear and honor the bear. I was like, wow, like what if a little kid put on the skin and became the bear? And like then it just kind of all clicked into place. And I was like, well, it's not just that, it's like at powwow dances and like other ceremonies we have. So that was that. And then at the same time, like all this is going on personally with Spirit Rangers, I was also working with Chris Nee on Vampirina at the time. And that's when I was seeing different types of preschool stories being told. When you think of preschool, you think of like Teletubbies, Barney, something really annoying that'll just like not really doing too much. But her type of storytelling is like really groundbreaking. And I'm just so inspired. Like my first day, I was reading an episode about a character who was going through chemo treatment and needed a doll. Like I was like, you can do this stuff in preschool. I just didn't realize, like, this is so cool. So channeling her like groundbreaking attitude with the native stuff I wanted to bring to the table, I pitched Chris Spirit Rangers when she just moved to Netflix, and she loved it. And we went through development, and then it was greenlit the year of the pandemic. So
that's just, I mean, I just want to say that, I mean, and for everyone here, like for me as like just like a young Native person trying to make it in the industry, like it's just so inspiring to talk to all of you. It's like I haven't met anyone else inside the industry that like looks like me or has the same interests or is coming from the same place that I am. And it's just like you all are out there, y'all doing just amazing things and really killing it. And I just like it just excites me so much, So staying on the subject of Spirit Rangers, it's really, so it's one of so you're one of the few, if not the only Native American showrunner in the business right now. Or soon to be. So like that must feel incredible, right? I mean, what's kind of going through your mind now that you have like this kind of show on you right now?
Oh my gosh, it's amazing. This is the dream job. This is what I wanted to do. I wanted to make Native content in animation. I can't believe I'm here. I just feel really like empowered at Netflix and really trusted, because I think when
Right.
people talk about Native content, everyone gets really nervous. They're like,
Yes.
can we approach the tribes? Can we do this? Like, I don't want
Yes.
to offend anyone. And there's just a fear. It's just all
Yes.
fear. But Netflix hasn't been like that. They put me
Oh,
as a
that's
producer, as an executive producer, as a showrunner. I got to build my own team, like Miss Shelley Dennis, picked my own cultural consultant, working with artists, musicians. It's been fantastic. Like, and this is the most Native show ever.
Oh,
And
so
I'm
excited.
so happy. Yeah.
So excited. It's
So
good.
just huge shout out to Netflix and Chris and the Laughing Wild team, because
Mhm.
I just feel all the love.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So has the writing process started?
Yes. So we have started the writing. I built the writer's room,
Yes,
100% Native from
Yes.
like Shelley was with us right before
Yes.
she got into the Disney Fellowship. We also have Joey Clift, who's from the
Yes.
Cowlitz tribe, and who half the characters are based on the Cowlitz. We had Kelly D'Angelo, who's on Haudenosaunee. It's been so amazing, like bringing all these different corners of the country into one writer's room, because we're all so different. Some of us grew up on reses, some of us didn't.
Yes.
Some of us like have been perceived differently, like kind of what Shelley was talking about.
Right.
And I think like those conversations make our stories so much stronger. We
Yeah.
get to bring all of that together, and it's been incredible.
Karissa, you're doing it. Like, you're doing it. Like, this is amazing.
Yes.
I mean, oh my God. So Shelley, I'll feel free to chime in here too. But like, how is being in a room staffed with all Native people been different from your experiences where you might have been the only Native voice in the room?
Well, I won the lottery so early. This was my first official staffing job.
Ah!
So now I've been in the industry and other corners and stuff to understand how fortunate that I was to be a part of that. But yeah, like that I felt very safe speaking, and it didn't feel, there was no hierarchy of like, well, you don't talk during this meeting and you just sit there and listen. And I mean, I'm a baby writer. It was like my first staffing job. So I felt like I had a voice in there, and all the ideas were, I learned so much about other tribes because
Yeah.
I was more familiar with the tribes in my region. So it was fun to share and then learn so much about, all these other experiences, and to do it with like the mindset of a child was so exciting. So I would pinch myself and just be like, I'm like playing. Today I played, it was amazing. So I'm just, yeah, it's a wet dream. It really was. Yeah.
Karissa, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, just to piggyback off of that, I just think like it was so cool to be able to talk about powwows, and like everyone had been, and like we all just kind of like know certain things, which is really cool. I lean on my writers a lot. Like I think it's unusual for other showrunners. Like I'll ask them, it's like having this Native collective of people that I can lean on and ask for, like, to look at art. What do you think of this song? Does this sound like this? Like, just we all kind of like, they all pitch in, and it just means the world to me that I can lean on them. They're fantastic.
That's so great. I mean, hey, if you need a PA. All right, so we'll open it up to the entire panel. Just have a couple of questions where you all could feel free to chime in. So it's no secret that Hollywood has a diversity problem. I think it's especially true for Native Americans, and I'm sure you all have stories about what it's like to be the only Native voice in the room. So how do you handle that? And what advice might you have for other Indigenous people or anyone else who finds themselves to be the only voice in the room? You want to chime in?
Yeah, I'm happy to jump in. There are some shows where you get hired because you have a compelling sample and a breadth of experience and a relevance to the story that will liven it up for everybody. There are going to be some times where people want to meet you because they have a Native on the show and they know they need to have a Native. And it is but one thing to keep in mind is that the reason that somebody hires you isn't the reason that they'll keep you around. They might think that that is all you have to offer. And that may be what happens in the first few weeks of the job, where anytime you try to speak to something outside the box they've imagined for you, they might literally not hear it because they are doing their grocery list,
Right.
waiting for their opportunity to speak. But the secret is lateral networking. Whatever the boss thinks about you is going to be what the boss thinks about you, unless they're an amazing boss. Karissa, I hear you're fantastic. But like a lot of the times, the expectations are going to be there, and you can't do anything about their expectations. But the people at your level, the people that you are spending more time with and interacting with more, they will see that you have chops outside of being the rubber stamp for their portrayal of natives. If you have a skill set, if you have additional abilities to bring to bear, show those, not necessarily to impress the showrunner, who is very hard to impress because they have a million things to worry about and are not waiting to give you your little biscuit. But if you impress other people, you will have a coterie of people who will boost your pitches in the room, who will say like, oh, I know that she had a great pitch earlier. We should go listen to that. Or, you know, Shelley pulled me aside and she had this pitch for 103. I think it's fantastic. You should hear it. That's going to come from other people. Treat the team as a team and not as competition. Would be my best advice on rising above it. Because if you feel like you're in a box and you try to perform to be the best native you can, people might think like, well, there are no natives in this episode, so why do we need to hear from them? And so like, if you broaden what you are capable of, and show the right people, it'll come through. That's maybe not optimistic, but it's what worked for me.
Anyone else?
One thing I've definitely like reflected on this for a while, and I think it's important to a couple of things. Be the best writer that you like can. Yes, we all have amazing stories, and we're all interesting, and we're all completely different. Again, Karissa was saying in the room, it's a room full of native writers with wildly different experiences. So you have the material. We all have stories to tell. Get as good as you possibly can at telling that story, and you'll find someone who wants to tell it with you. It's in the translation. So if you can express yourself you can't just rely on your own experience. I think you have to be able to express it, or no one will be able to express it for you, is what I'm trying to say. So I think just knowing that if you do get in a room and it is a token situation, remember the big goal. You're there to learn how to be in that room. So when it's your time, when it's your story to tell, you can tell it in such a way that everyone will get behind you. So I think it's continuously thinking in the big picture, or at least that's where I'm at currently, that I know, you know, my story isn't going to be like anyone else's. And I just want to be able to be ready when it's time to tell that. And right now I'm learning how to help other people tell theirs and contribute where I can.
Real quick sorry, Tom, were you going to
go? Go ahead.
Just real quick, if you can make the truth seem fun and exciting as a story opportunity, that based off of what Shelley was saying, like if you can excite people, they will want to hear the story. And in a room where positive energy is sort of key, if you come in and say like, oh, well, that's not how it would go, end of sentence, that like brings momentum to a halt. It makes people feel bad and embarrassed. But if you can say like, you know, that's not how it goes, but like, let me tell you about the truth and what makes the truth like so exciting. And like, if you can get people engaged with what reality is, it makes it so much easier to correct stereotypes and misrepresentations. When you can say like, here's the story opportunity. Here's why it's actually badass if we do what's in reality instead of the thing that you remember from a movie you saw 20 years ago. Like it is a lifesaver. Sorry, Tom.
Well, and then to piggyback off Will and what Shelley were saying, like, I think it's really important to be in touch with your background, your own story, your own experiences, and then to live in those and be comfortable with those and to express those in the room. Because like, you don't want to be put in this position where your experience is supposed to stand in for all natives. Like, and so be willing to push back and like be very honest to the room about like what your experiences are.
Mhm.
Like, so I get brought in often to pitch on horror and thriller assignments, and they often mine the old well of Indian burial grounds or astral projection and stuff. And like, I've been asked in the room before, like, what did your family believe when you were growing up? And I was like, you want to know the stories my grandma told me? It was about the resurrection, about the virgin birth. Like, they were from Tahlequah, Oklahoma. They were strong Baptist Cherokees. That is my story. That is my, like, that is the mythology that like really was like the guiding force in my family for a long time. Like, and so, and like, people are always taken aback by that. It's like, Baptist Cherokee, I never. And I was like, you've been to Oklahoma? Like, this is what you're bringing me in for. Like, this is, this is my truth. This is what I can speak to. And I think that's important. Always just sort of, find your own experience and truth and, find ways to express that.
Yeah.
I just wanted to add really quick to that, not to be too cynical sounding, but like, if someone is in that situation too, where you're super tokenized, and like, I just feel like there's some strength in leaving these situations too. Like, there are other shows coming up that need your voice also, not that one person who's trying to like peg you in there and just, check the box for themselves. It sounds scary because it's sometimes like, you're like, oh my God, I just got my foot in the door. Like, this is it. But like, there are so many, I feel like TV's in a renaissance right now. Film is in a renaissance. There's so much content coming out. So I feel like if you're not in a place where you can thrive and grow, like, it's okay to move on too.
The power of no in this industry is like, it is this weird super weapon. And it's not utilized nearly enough by writers, especially, diverse writers. Like, if you have reps, tell your reps why you said no.
Yeah.
And, if they respect it, they will stay your reps. If they don't respect it, then they work for you and you can make adjustments.
Right.
So, I mean, yes, totally agree.
Yeah. I mean, so you both kind of answered a little bit of this next question, but I was thinking about kind of on a similar vein of tokenizing or being the only voice in the room when there's some kind of like really weird shenaniganery happening with the way people want to portray Native people. It's like there are so few of us, right? It just in the industry generally. It's like we're often the first people come to when they have any question about Indian country anywhere, right? It's just like, it doesn't have to be like about your people, it could be just about anyone, right? So how do you manage expectations about what you can and cannot speak to when it comes to Native people, professionally and beyond? Give you a moment.
I will tell a complete stranger that I know what original formulation for Loco tastes like. So I just have like no ego. I'm able to, like, I tell people I look like this. I'm Cherokee, which is really complicated in Indian country for a variety of well-deserved reasons. And so like, what I can do is I can be thoughtful, and I can try my best, but like, you gotta know what you're getting into. I'm me. And I think that like being authentic with people is the morally correct thing to do, but it will also strengthen your position. Like, if you are a res native and you have not been an urban native, to say so, that is a strength. It is not a weakness. And if that is a problem, they need to hire more natives, not fire you. And I think that embracing that ethos is beneficial to everybody everywhere.
Anyone else want to chime in? I see you there, Karissa. I see you.
Well, I was gonna say, like, the snarky answers, like sometimes I'll just mess with people and like, yes, I am related to Pocahontas. Yes, indeed. That's what you really want to say. But I think like
Don't give me ideas. Don't give me ideas.
I think people like are really genuinely curious though. Like they do want to know and they do want to learn. So like I can often sense again that like fear, like they're afraid to ask, like, well, how do I call this or how do I pronounce your tribe? And I just think being like super like genuine about it is the best way to go. And I'm always happy to chat about it. Like we're here, we're still here, right? Like we can still talk about it. It's not in the books yet.
Right.
So I'm always happy to answer those questions.
I'm 99% of the time happy to answer those questions. And then sometimes there'll be like, are there airports on reservations? I'm like, have you ever had a layover on one? What are you talking about?
That is so funny. Shelly?
Growing up where I grew up, I was so uncultured in other ways that I think I have a soft spot for even poorly asked questions around, being Native and being Choctaw, if that's what they're specifically asking about. So it's for myself, it's more about how it's asked and not what is specifically said. And I just don't think, I think everybody has the best of intentions, and that's even everybody wants to make money on their movie and they want their TV show to be successful and they don't want Native Twitter to blow up, but who doesn't, but at the end of the day, I think people, in my experience, and I'm still pretty new, but people will call wanting the Native perspective, and it's been respectful, even though it might have not been worded just the right way. So like Will said, being very upfront about what story I specifically have within that right away, because I don't want to meet and then have someone see me and be disappointed, or hear, I send a bio, here's my perspective, and then that's one of a lot. And then if I'm not the right one for you, there's a whole Native writing community that I'm happy to connect you with, because I think there was a question in the Q&A somewhere. The Native writing community has been, and that starts at LA Skin in my experience. It's so supportive. I haven't felt that sense of community in Los Angeles in the decade that I've been here until I got into that community. So it exists. So I think it's also like tossing the ball to somebody who might be a better fit for something if I'm not.
Awesome. All right. So just 2 more questions for me, if that's okay. I'll promise to be quick. So with what little representation that does exist about us that's on screen, it's often, rife with tropes and stereotypes and just ahistorical misinformation, right? We're treated as like a cultural monolith, right? Or we're not really portrayed anywhere outside of like the 1800s, let's say, right? So I'd like to hear from all of you. In what ways are you undoing these stereotypes or kind of moving beyond, this kind of legacy of traditional Hollywood portrayal of Native Americans?
I mean, for me, it does go back to, that whole speaking your truth in your own experience. So often when I write a Native character, I will have them be like very Christian. Wow. That just blows people away.
But that's so real. That's so real. My God.
It's so real. And it's also like so interesting because there's obviously like, we can unpack a whole lot about like why Natives are so Christian, because there's a long history going on here. But it is still part of their identity. Like it is like they're like, so just that that right there, I feel is like so rich, makes so much conflict within a character, that as a writer, it'd be stupid to like throw that aside and go for a trope. Like there's just so much more material there, and that makes it interesting. And I feel like Hollywood is looking for interesting voices anyway, and voices like an interesting perspective on things. And if I can take what I feel is the lowest hanging fruit from my own experience and put it into a story, and then everyone else is like, oh, this is so, how'd you come up with this? It's like, well, that's as easy. And so, yeah, I try to keep it real. And so yeah, that, and I do like to have my native characters exist in this century using technology.
Right. Great boots. Love that. Anyone else want to chime in?
Yeah, I can speak a little to this with Spirit Rangers in mind. Like what I like to say about Spirit Rangers too is like it has all this beautiful native stuff everywhere, and like it's just got so much native stuff in the DNA. But at the end of the day, like you don't have to be native to enjoy this show.
Yes.
It's about a modern family. They're funny, they argue, they support each other, and these kids go on adventures, and they're siblings, and they learn about respect and community, and like we're just all people. And like at the same time, for the preschool audience, like we get the opportunity to kind of introduce the native culture to them at such a young age, and they just get to see us be everyday people. Like that's just something I'm really excited about for the show.
Oh, I love that.
Personally, the native side of my family is hilarious. And I think so many, I haven't seen the kind of humor that I've experienced in real life in our native community on TV. So that's something that and I think that fear is a big part of that. People, you have to have flawed characters to have comedy. So if you're afraid of making a native character flawed out of respect, which, again, the fear, then it's hard to have that really juicy, deep comedy. So my goal is to be like, I'm native, I can do this, and bring my my mom's side of the family to life, because we also need to have some laughs, because that's how we've made it this far, I think, partly. So yeah, I want to bring comedy.
It's so interesting you say that. I mean, I think about just like native humor, and I just like instantly just start laughing. I feel like native people are the funniest people on the planet. Like, like you just think about it, you're like, oh my God, the stuff I've heard on a powwow, my God, like an MC or something, right? It's like, it's great, I mean, I love how, we could tap into that and really show a different side. I just think it's so necessary. All right, so my last question with you all, and my parting question, what is the future of Native Americans in the film and television industry, both in front of and behind the screen? Are you optimistic about the future? Why or why not?
See, I was doing the like reading of the mute mics, and I was like, oh, Shelley's got something to say, but and so I was like holding back. No, I am cautiously optimistic. I've had a pretty decent development season where I had a pilot where the #1 note from network was, can we actually cut the white lady out a little bit and spend more time on the reservation, which was wild to me and very, very exciting. And so like I've had like a weirdly blessed couple of years, so I don't want to speak to trends as a whole, but there are, what I can say that's optimistic is that I've met very, very good people who want to tell stories authentically and who are tired of telling the same stories over and over again. And that makes me very, very optimistic. But I have led a charmed life for a little bit here. So I don't know if that's been everybody's experience.
I've got love goggles on right now because I'm coming off of Karissa's show, and I'm in a program that I feel, you know, that my voice is supported. I am experiencing I have optimism because of there's more education for storytelling, like again what Ian and Patty are doing with LA Skins. They're and I don't even know all the programs, but there's always something on their social media about they're going to this reservation, they're going to that, when they're educating kids on how to tell stories so that they know that that's actually an option, that that could be a career, that they could follow that path. So I think the more that that happens, the more that we're going to get those authentic storytellers, and they're not, Hollywood won't just be grabbing people because they're native and trying to authenticate something that they're creating, but we're going to have real stories being told because they know how. So I'm optimistic in that way, and I think it all starts with education.
Mm-hmm.
I'm optimistic, just, you know, in the conversations I've had with people, the meetings I've gone to, like everyone, like there is a receptiveness and desire, and I feel like the breakthrough is happening with shows like Spirit Rangers.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't want to speak too much about the shows Will's like developing, but I like, from what I know, like the key is, once there's more than one native in a show, then suddenly like it blows the top off it, and you can just start exploring all these, you know, you can have one that fits into the stereotype, and then you can unpack that stereotype and deconstruct it, and then you can have someone speaking the other point of view, and like, and you can get all of these different perspectives in there. And, you know, the more, and the fact that those shows now exist and are like coming into fruition, and it's not just that one, you know, native character who, you know, is therefore kind of unfortunately has to represent all natives. Like now, once you have like these larger casts, then you can just, you know, treat them real. And it's, I think, you know, I feel that is the kind of thing that sort of change, like starts this much larger change.
I'm going to end on a high note here. The future is so bright. Oh my gosh. Like I am feeling it. Like I just, like coming from Spirit Rangers, obviously, like Shelley was saying, love goggles 100%. But like, I just also think like with shows like Reservation Dogs, Amalia of Denali, like we're all hiring other natives, which then they're learning and they're getting their foot in the door. Like Spirit Rangers with Shelley's first staff experience. Now she gets to go off and do other things. Like that'll trickle down, and then we'll just all kind of be working, and it'll just like keep snowballing. And I just think it's just, yeah, the future is so bright, I think. And keep writing, keep pushing your voice forward. Like that's what people want to hear. There is so much TV out there. Like I think if you stick to your truth and want to tell your story, like that comes off really genuine, and then it deserves to be on TV. It's not just like another filler show, you know what I mean? So yeah, I just think the future is so bright for Indigenous people and artists. Yeah.
Oh my goodness, what a great note to end on. I think like, that's so beautiful. Thank you everybody. So right now, in our final kind of 8 minutes, I'm sorry everyone, I took up a lot of time, but we're gonna get to a couple audience Q&A questions. Here, let's see. There was one I saw that I really, yes. Okay, so this one comes from Asha Dev. He asks, or they asked, how have you seen Native American representation change over the course of your career? We'll do like a one question, one answer type thing, so we can get through as many as we can. So if anyone wants to take this one.
I had a sample script where I named the tribal affiliation of every native character. And I put a disclaimer on the first page of like, hey, I'm going to do this because I'm talking about the American Indian movement. And it was a wide and disparate movement of a lot of people coming together. Like, you can look it up if you want, but like, I just want to show that this is a wide group of people from a wide selection of the country coming together to fight under a common cause. And I had multiple people tell me not to put that in the script when I first wrote it. And now people ask me what is the tribal affiliation of any Native character, like, and that was within a 3-year span. So there is like at least a growing realization that you can't just put Native in parentheses and let that be enough. And that has happened within the length of my career, which is wild, but very exciting.
That's so great. All right, this next question comes from Anton Bayejan. I hope I'm saying that right. They ask, are there any particular examples of Native representation in the last year in film or television you'd like to reference that spoke to you or inspired you?
I know we're all grown adults here, but I'm going to give a shout out to Molly of Denali. I think that show is so cute, and seeing little Molly go on adventures in Alaska and hang out with her friends, like, and share her culture, sing her songs. I just was floored. I was like watching the whole season. So huge shout out to them.
Wild Indian from Lyle Corbett Jr.
Yes.
Incredible examination of like masculinity, indigeneity. Yeah, amazing movie. Sorry.
Anyone else? Anyone else? Shelly?
I was just thinking of, I think I was hesitating because I can't remember the title. It's like For Love of Basketball or something. That was really heartwarming. I think it's a Netflix show. So that one was beautifully done.
Tommy, you got anything or?
I mean, what popped into my head is like, there's a horror novel, The Only Good Indian, that it like mass market publisher, like went out wide and big, and so just for my genre, like that's super exciting.
Stephen Graham Jones.
That's great. That's great. I think we might have talked about this a little bit in our conversation, but this question comes from Junius Drumgold. They ask, how can Native American TV writers network and get to know each other?
Hold my beer. The programs, if you're not in LA Skins, they have a writers program or a writers like meetup as well, and you don't have to like have a script. You can go and support. You can listen to table reads, and I've been networking with some really cool people just on social media like Twitter and Instagram and stuff. If you are part of the Native community, people understand we all start at different places. So I've been just so humbled by like how people have given me their time in the community. Like even Will, when I to call you out, when I made it to the finals of the Disney program, I knew he had done it before, and he hopped on the phone. He's like developing like 2 pilots at ABC like right now. This guy doesn't have time, but he hopped on the phone with me and gave me some really great advice. And I think just getting out of your comfort zone and asking and showing up, and you'll find the community if you like are if you put yourself out there, which can be hard for us introverts, but I think it's necessary and you will be welcomed.
I was muted. Sorry about that. Cool. Let's see. This might be the last question. If we have time, we can maybe take another one. So what advice do you have for non-Indigenous creators for opening up a space and amplifying Indigenous voices?
My advice would be broaden your perception of what a Native voice could be. Like I would love to see a sci-fi show with a Cherokee in space. Like, don't just think of like This is a show in Wyoming. Let's have some Indians. This is a show in the 1800s. Let's get some Indians. Like, imagine that in any story you're telling, there's a space for natives. You can have a hospital show where there is a native doctor. There can be a legal show where there's a native lawyers. The Cherokee Nation has some fucking incredible lawyers. Like, we are amazing at the law. Like, just imagine whatever show you are telling, there is a native story. Just talk to a native. That's like, that's it. And the native will find the angle. You don't need to find the angle. It doesn't have to be your job. Outsource that shit. Hire some natives.
Kapena, will you read the question one more time, just so I know I'm answering correctly?
Yeah, it was what advice might you have for non-Indigenous creators to open up a space for amplifying Indigenous voices?
Yes. So I think a lot of times people will come after the project is created and try to native something up. I would say connect with writers and storytellers and see what they have that you might connect with and that you can then collaborate on. I know that there are many different ways to do it, but if that's a goal of yours, I would start there instead of, you know, calling them last minute to just make a native pass on something.
Anyone else? Did everyone? All right. So we're coming up on time here. It's 8:30. Have you all for about an hour and a half. Thank you all so much for coming. This has been, I think, probably one of the best panels I did. I'm not gonna lie. Don't tell anyone else that. I'm just so full of life right now. I mean, it's truly an honor to talk to all of you. Ian, I'm not sure if you wanted to say anything more about LA Skins Fest, anything else that I might have missed saying, if you want to tell the audience.
No, I just thanks again for mentioning at the beginning. I can't mention enough. We do have our 6th annual TV Writers Lab is coming up. Our call for applications is March 1st, which is a week from today, and it takes place in late April to late May. And then we have our COVID Relief Fund. It's a $2,000 mini grant for any native who is in any production position above the line, below the line positions, as you mentioned before, Kapena. Thank you for mentioning that. If you go to nama.media, you could find the application for the TV Lab and the COVID Relief Fund. So I highly encourage people to take a look at that, and really appreciate it, Kapena. You always do such a great job. You have such good energy.
Thank you.
Yeah, see, that's what I'm saying. See, look at that. See, I'm already feeling it. See, see, look, you're doing it again.
Getting smile lines. Like, look.
I'm gonna burst. Okay, so no, I really appreciate the support. Thanks again, and guys, thank you so much for taking time out and talking with us and sharing. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Alex, is there anything else?
No, I just wanted to throw out my thanks too. This was just incredibly entertaining and insightful. And based on all of the questions that we got, I know it meant a lot to a lot of people. So thank you all so much for doing this. And Kapena, you're amazing. Thank you again. Really looking forward to the next one.
Panel. I love everyone here. It's fantastic.
Stacey, that opening was so beautiful. Thank you for doing that. That was a perfect way to start things off. Thank you.
So for everyone out there, we've got a couple more events this semester with LA Skins Fest. So stay tuned. We'll try and get something out there soon. And thank you all again so much, and have a great night.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you so much.